Alpha T&D Limited is basically working in power sector in the whole West Africa. So we can say we are doing the manufacturing, we are doing the trading, and we are doing the infrastructure development. So into the manufacturing, we are the leading meter manufacturer in company in Ghana. So we have prepared almost 1.1 million energy meters made in Ghana, supplied in Ghana. We are also exporting the energy meters to the neighboring countries like Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Burkina Faso. Under infrastructure development, we are doing a lot of substation, transmission line, distribution, and rural electrification. We have done a lot of substations in Ghana and to the neighboring countries also. Apart from that, we are also doing the trading of the electrical goods like transformer, cable, conductors, posts, all kind of things which is required for the infrastructure development. Alpha T&D is a UAE subsidiary, and we started in Ghana from 10 years ago. So we are in Ghana and West Africa from last 10 years. Ghana is one of the nice country, and it's ease of doing the business. And I can say this as per the World Bank ranking and all international agencies, they always say that Ghana is one of the best environment to do the business. It's a reliable, safe, secure, politically stable. So all this gives the advantage among the other West African countries. If you do the right things, nobody will come and disturb you. And the most important thing in Ghana is human resource. You can find the best human resource in the whole West Africa, and you can give them a training, and you can do all kind of businesses you wanted to do. We started our Ghana incorporation through GIPC only. So GIPC guided us to incorporate the company, how to do the registration, what are the rule and regulation, what kind of minimum investment is required, what kind of the rule and things for the trading company, for the manufacturing companies, and after registering, how you can bring the expatriate, how you can do the quota, and how you can take some advantages based on the government policies, based on the sector policies. So these are the all rule and regulation was provided by the GIPC. So this is one of the safe place to do the business, where your investment is secured, where policy is very supportive, where government is also supportive, where all the government institutions is also very supportive. We are operating in Togo, we are operating in Burkina Faso, we are operating in Benin, Sierra Leone, Liberia. So these are the countries we are operating through Ghana. So in terms of the employment, we have 250 plus manpower, which is 90% is Ghanaians, and the rest 10% is expatriate. And apart from that, we also added a lot of value into the economy. Once you are doing the business, you do directly, indirectly, indirect taxes to the government, which also increase the economy. We are also bringing a lot of forex from the neighboring countries. So proudly I can say we are taking the Ghana flags to the neighboring countries, and we brought more than $100 million into the Ghana from the neighboring countries through different kind of contracts. Once you are making the products inside the Ghana, the delivery period is very, very fast. You don't have to wait 4 months or 5 months for the importation. And the most important thing, you basically not allowing forex to go out. You are using the currency locally to produce locally, and you supply locally. So that gives a lot of advantage. And we wanted to be known as one of the most ethical company, providing the good quality of products with the good prices, with the good delivery times, and providing all kind of adding the value addition in the all supply chain. I would like to tell all my business friends, join me in Ghana, grow in Ghana, grow with Ghana.
BFAP Plus company we started nearly 2 decades back. We are into the steel manufacturing and trading house. Today we are very proud to say that BFAP Plus has become a net exporter to whole West African countries. So not only we serve Ghana, but we also export to 15 West African countries. We are producing nails, binding wire, wire mesh, galvanized mesh, square pipes, Z profiles, steel plates, roofing sheet, iron rods. These are all products we are producing here. Recently, BFAP Plus put up the smelting plant. So at present, we are also producing rebars from scrap. That is BS 4449 grades and different grades. Under 1D1F, under His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, we have opened West Africa's biggest fabrication plant, that is in Lapleku, where we are producing any type of fabrication where you talk about shades, different types. We can make the residential buildings, tankers, storage facility, anything you name it, we can produce that one there. And we are very proud to say that currently whatever BFAP Plus has produced in the last couple of months under 1D1F, we have been receiving very high report of that. The quality and the service what we have provided that it is really commendable. And at the same time, BFAP Plus has also come up with a melting unit, a biggest melting unit. At present, we have already started since last October, and very soon we are going to commission the rolling mill as well. Ghana Club 100 Award, we have been recipients for the last couple of years, and as per GIPC ranking in the industrial, we are always number 1 and 2. In the steel, we are number 1. So that has gone a quite positive way. And whenever you receive any award from a reputed institution like GIPC, that gives an additional edge, and when you are dealing with your other counterparties. And at the same time, it also keeps you on the toes to make sure that you should keep doing the good work what you're doing. And so far the processing and working with GIPC has been really great. BFAP Plus currently employs more than 10,000 people directly, indirectly. Beside that, we have more than 1,000 distribution network. At present, BFAP Plus is having 12 branches across Ghana in different regions. Today, BFAP Plus is serving housing industry, to the oil and gas industry, to the mining industry, to clients of corporates like who are into the residential projects, and fabricators, and lot more. We are the promoters of DPSI International School in Community 25. We like to give a free education to the children. We keep on doing the free medical camps, eye camps, support the sports activity, and a lot more. I think the Ghanaian consumers, they are the smart consumers. What they believe in, the quality product at the right price, and the service. If you give them the box of everything, and BFAP Plus is one-stop shop for steel. So you name it, we have it. Ghana is like a second home. I was 32 years in Africa and spent 26 years in Ghana. So say when my children are born here and we love to do business here, it is the people who really make a big difference. Geographically, location, if you really look at it, is an ideal location to operate from here to the other West African countries. And there are ample of opportunities. The first thing somebody should say that when it comes to the quality of steel and the pricing, it is the BFAP Plus. And at the same time, we also want to be known for our CSR activities. BFAP Plus not only produces the quality steel, but they also produce the quality leaders for tomorrow. I would like to take this opportunity for all my dear friends inside and outside Ghana, that they should take an opportunity to come and invest in Ghana, associate with a company like BFAP Plus, grow with it. Join us, let's grow in Ghana and grow with Ghana.
Fair Africa is a 100% subsidiary of Fair Africa Germany, now AG, in Munich. Our mission actually is to bring world-class chocolate from Ghana to Europe, not only sourcing the beans actually from Africa, but also producing the beans into chocolates. Fair Africa actually was incorporated on the 28th of October 2020, that's last year. Unfortunately, we had a pandemic during that period, but I should say that Fair Afrique has been in existence since 2016. Fair Afrique really started with CPC, with private labeling. We also had another private labeling with niche cocoa. So finally we said, well, then we need to come up with our own company where we might be able to, or we should build, and so that we can really meet the demand of our customers. Fair Afrique Ghana Limited is the only solar-powered company producing organic chocolate with rare inclusions currently in the country.
The purpose of this event is to dialogue with foreign machines in Ghana and strengthen existing ties, and also to discuss investment approaches and deliberate on mutual practical measures towards revitalizing businesses to accelerate economic growth. Today, we will explore the theme of promoting bilateral investment, igniting growth, and strengthening economic partnerships. On behalf of the host, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, I welcome you to this event. I am Isaac Boache, and I'll be your master of ceremonies towards this morning's event. Thank you. We also want to acknowledge the presence of the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Mr. Yofi Grant. He says this is his office, so anyway. Also, we have honoring us with his presence, the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, His Excellency Maher Kir. You must note that before I went to him to ask for the pronunciation, but he told me I can't do the actual thing, so so let's give it up for him again. All right, so we would have a video play, then we would kick off with the program. Thank you very much.
We are indeed the center of the world and the land of the 3 O's: opportunities, optimism, and openness for business and investment in a friendly and safe environment. We are a preferred investment destination in Africa. To find out more about what Ghana has to offer, visit www.gipc.gov.gh. Center of the world and home to the headquarters of the AFCFTA. Abundant resources and limitless opportunities for business and investment. A great story of growth and attractive returns in a fast transforming country. Be part of this great opportunity and optimism. Invest in Ghana. Make it happen with the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, GIPC. Connect, let's talk, and guide you through numerous incentive packages for investment. We are open and ready for partnerships to grow in Ghana and grow with Ghana. Locate us at Vivo Place Cantonment Accra or call us 0302-665-12529. Online at www.gipc.gov.gh and on all social media platforms at GIPC Ghana. Drop us a mail, info@gipc.gov.gh. GIPC, your first port of call for investing in Ghana. In the heart of West Africa lies a land brimming with untold stories, vibrant cultures, and boundless spirits. Welcome to Ghana, the heartbeat of Africa, where nature and culture harmoniously exist. Feel the rhythm of life as you wander through the vibrant market and witness the infectious joy and warmth of the Ghanaian people. Their skill and determination that provide sustenance for their communities. Immerse yourself in the rhythms of the drum, the graceful movement of traditional dance, and symphony of cultures, languages, and traditions that coexist in harmony. Explore the rich history of Ghana as you walk through the corridors of our historic forts and castles, a reminder of the resilience and strength of the Ghanaian people. Embark on an unforgettable safari in our forest reserves and parks, where wildlife roam freely in their natural habitat, and take in the spectacular beauty of nature that envelopes Ghana with its imposing waterfalls and water bodies. Uncover the essence of the legendary Gold Coast, renowned as one of the world's leading producers of gold and adorned with other minerals like diamonds, iron, bauxite, lithium, and manganese. And beyond the treasures, lush vegetations thrive and abundant oil and gas flow. Experience the vibrant energy of the cities where modernity and tradition coexist, where industries are thriving, backed by continuous technological advancement, with people exuding an unwavering spirit of progress. And don't forget, we are the commercial hub of Africa and a symbol of democracy on the continent. Indeed, this is Ghana, a home for the diaspora community and persons from all walks of life, where every moment is an opportunity to create lifelong memories, discover the magic, embrace the spirit, and let Ghana leave an indelible mark on your soul.
Future, we can actually have the ambassadors and the economic counselors together here, because it's very important. And so I am particularly grateful that the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps himself is here, because he leads that charge. But notwithstanding, I think it's still very important to have you all here, because the work we do here is very important. But like I just said, we can't do it without engagement with our foreign partners. Ghana as a country, no matter how attractive you are or we are, we need to position ourselves to have very conducive relationships, clear understanding of what the relationship offers and delivers, but also an engagement that is global, not just for our country, but an engagement and partnership that is mutually beneficial. And that is why we hold these meetings. So today in particular, I think it's even more important, considering that we are going through a little hoop, and post the pandemic, and also sort of multiplied by the conflict that we all know about. The world has taken an interesting turn. There has been, new dimensions to relationships, both economic and political. There are new dimensions in businesses. Many countries are onshoring, reshoring, friendshoring, whichever you call it. And there are new markets emerging. But I am very clear and certain in my mind that there's no market at this time of global dynamics much more important than the African market. And I say that because all the indicators show that. Africa has population, currently 1.4 billion people. It mirrors Asia, China, it mirrors India slightly. It has quite a significant amount of the world's remaining mineral resources, especially those required for energy transitions. And that I'll mention quite a few: lithium, copper, manganese, bauxite, name it. You have it in significant quantities in Africa. And coltan, cobalt, it's all here. And so, as a continent, it's potentially could trigger the next wave of growth in the global economic dynamics by utilizing its own market, by utilizing the resources that it has. Additionally, the continent itself has about 60% of the world's remaining arable land left. So even as we talk about food security, the advent of global warming and climate change, Africa once again holds the key that if Africa can step up with its production, it could be a buffer against the food challenges that are emerging. So I think those are the contexts in which we speak. But with Ghana particularly, and I know many of you have been here in anticipation of what we are going to say about the reforms that we've so been talking about. And I must say that we've engaged in this journey of reforming the GIPC law for about 5 years. And against what I thought could have been a quick and snappy exercise, it hasn't been so for various reasons and tangible reasons. First of all, we were working with ECOWAS on an ECOWAS investment protocol, which took about 2 years to complete. And then, of course, we had the AFCFTA African investment protocols to also make sure that there was consonance between what we wanted to do internally and what other protocols we had signed up to. And I'm happy to say that indeed they are all in line. And so even before I say what I want to say, I want to assure you that in the very near future, the reforms as we have are going to be tabled before Parliament, Cabinet, actually within the next week, the next few days. And hopefully we'll see it in Parliament quite soon. And it may have it has a few radical changes in there. But all these are in consonance with global standards, new trends, and the ability to retain Ghana in front of the interest of investors. Today's world is a very challenging and also competitive world. And as much as we compete for FDI, some of the biggest providers of FDI are also the biggest, marketing places for FDI. They themselves require FDI. And case in point is China. It remains one of the top attractions for foreign direct investments, and currently the top, FDI destination. But it's also a major provider of capital. But we've also realized that the solutions that we require may not necessarily lie with the big players. They may lie with some of the smaller countries around us because of the direction in which we are going. And Ghana stands to position itself as a pivot for the AFCFTA, which is a significant market, which I mentioned before, 1.4 billion people, with a demographic that is extremely exciting. About 60% of that demographic is less than 30 years old. And so we have an emerging market waiting to happen, but also potentially the next, should I say, cadre of the world's human capital. And it's instructive to know that Africa has embraced technology and digitalization in a very interesting way. I mean, there are applications in that space that are being used in Africa that are not used anywhere else. There are innovations in Africa that are being used that are not anywhere else. I mean, I was trying to explain to a friend in Europe about mobile money, and he just couldn't understand. He says, so I pay everything with my phone? I say, yes, I do almost every transaction with my phone, not with my bank, but with my telecoms provider. And he says, wow, they don't have that. They don't have it in the US. So there are some good things happening. And the good thing for me that is really overwhelming is this desire to move away from the past and create a new narrative on the continent. A narrative of partnership, a narrative of mutuality, and a narrative of understanding. I have said that the very dictates of the past were driven by misconceptions between two people of different cultures. And I think today we can bridge all that and create mutuality in the benefits we have. So I will just quickly rifle through some of the things we've done as a country on the advent of the economic ruffles that we've had. And I must say that with the pandemic and of course with the war that erupted a couple of years back, almost every country has been rattled somehow. Every country has felt a bit of, distortion or disruption in its economics because of supply chain disruptions, value chain disruptions, etc. But there is definitely a drive to resolve all these things such that we all move on and move on, creditably. Ghana has faced some challenges, and I must say that prior to 2019, the economy was perhaps on getting onto even keel. We had an average growth rate of 7% between 2017 and 2019, which was acknowledged as one of the fastest growing economies. We had a fiscal deficit that was less than 5%. We had inflation at an average of about 8%, and we had a positive primary balance. But of course, as I said, COVID, including the Russian-Ukraine war, our own financial tightening, and global supply chain disruptions resulted in a major shift in all those indicators. So we ended up with significant fiscal imbalances as well as huge debt vulnerabilities. And it's since then we've been grappling with all the indicators to try and hold it down, and that led us to seek assistance and partnership with the IMF so that we could get a bit of credibility to be able to go back to the global debt markets, because we had, like I said, we had debt vulnerabilities. So in conjunction with the IMF, we mapped out a plan that we call the Post-COVID Program for Economic Growth, PCPEG, and it's anchored on the following: front-loaded fiscal measures to bring public finances back on a sustainable path. And one of the results of what happened the last time with the COVID and the thing was that even government revenues were seriously compromised. With COVID, many of the industries shut down, jobs were lost. Government also had to spend significant amounts of capital that would have been as well used for development to ensure that life was sustained. And as the president successfully put it, that we know how to bring economies back to life, but what we do not know how to do is to bring people back to life. So we would focus on keeping people alive and then work to bring the economy alive. Secondly, we also sought to restore debt sustainability, including reducing the cost of financing, which has been impactful on our economy in a negative way. And then, of course, minimize the fiscal risks, including risk from contingent liabilities. And government is a big animal. So apart from main government, what we call main government, there are all these other associated entities like Cocoa Board, like Electricity Corporation, and many of the SOEs, who are contingent liabilities onto government's balance sheet. So one of the major things was to minimize the fiscal risk that these agencies pose to central government balances. And then, of course, to deepen structural reforms, which are very important, and restore investor confidence. Because if you do all these things and you still do not have the confidence of the investor, you are still short of the ability to go to the markets to source credit or, in fact, investors. And very often, I've had to, answer questions that really I shouldn't be answering. The Ministry of Finance should answer. But it's important to understand them, because you want somebody's money, you need to give him all the assurances that you are responsibly doing what is right to make sure that he can get his money back and get it at a little profit, etc., etc. But we are also looking to strengthen the partnerships with our development partners. And I think that there's been no time, interestingly and enigmatically, at this time when we are facing all these problems, that Ghana has had the strongest desire to strengthen partnerships, development partnerships with the foreign missions and all the other countries with whom we have very good relationships. We are also looking to diversify all those into new sources of financing, like green energies, green financing. And I myself have been very active on the circuits talking about sustainable finance and also sustaining finance for SDGs, which has become a very important platform on which global growth, I believe, will be predicated. And then, of course, we are looking to do reforms that will encourage private investments. And we are very clear that beyond the bilateral G2G relationships that we have, there is another world out there that should be B2G and B2B to enable opening up the economy and opening up and facilitating these relationships that I said we need to so strongly foster. Because that's where we are going to get growth and job creation. It's the private sector that creates jobs and creates wealth. Government's job is to ensure that we have a conducive regulatory environment that will enable everything to work very well. And then lastly, to engender social protection, because we also recognize that with all these hardships, the burden of adjustment is quite arduous on many people. And so government needs to work pretty hard to ensure that we keep social protection intact. I spoke about the reforms to ensure economic stability and some of the targets that we expect to achieve. And I'm saying this because we have many partners here and they need to understand the basis on which we are doing what we're doing. Some of the targets they want to achieve is to reach a 1.5% of GDP primary balance or primary surplus in the medium term. And that will be some fiscal adjustment of about 5.5% of GDP. And then we are looking at fiscal revenues of approximately 18.5% of GDP by 2026. Currently we are at 15.5%, but we need to really raise it up. Then in the medium term, to bring inflation down back to what it was pre-COVID, about 8%, and then restore external buffers with our gross international reserves to reach or go back to the 3 months of import cover by 2026, and hopefully beyond go back to the 4 months that it was before. And then sustaining debt or achieving debt sustainability at 55% of debt to GDP by 2028. And then lastly, the major achievement we hope to achieve is or attain is enhancing competitiveness with exports surpassing 37% of our GDP in the medium term. And that for us is key because it means that we need to look fundamentally at the economy to boost exports. We also need to look at many of our bilateral agreements and our multilateral agreements to open up new trade lines. And like I said, post-COVID, post-war, there's all indications that there are new relationships being formed, new markets being formed, and we need to take advantage of that. I also spoke about the front-loading of the fiscal adjustment of 5.1% percentage points of GDP over a 3-year period from 2023 to 2026. Some of the revenue measures that government has adopted to do that include increasing VAT from the 12.5% that we currently have to about 15%, which is an increase of 2.5 percentage points. Secondly, intensify the implementation of the VAT e-invoicing system to enhance compliance and also bring about efficiency with government being able to collect, which is very key. Then removal of selected VAT exemptions, because some of those exemptions lead to government's inability to achieve its revenue targets. Then complete removal of discount on the benchmark values that are given at the ports for importers. Then also implement the unified property rate collections, which has become quite key. And on that regard, we are grateful to the EU and all the other partners who have supported that in that endeavor. And then, of course, implementation of what we call a growth and stability levy, and revision of excise taxes for selected items. Then we have revision of income-based taxes, and reviews in the e-levy to close the loopholes and leakages. And you all know that the e-levy was a hot topic. And even as last night, I was arguing with another economist on why we need to have an e-levy, whether it was beneficial or not. But the jury's out there. We think that it's still a very viable way to increase your tax net, but also increase your tax revenues. Then, of course, the sale of the 5G electromagnetic spectrum in the telecoms industry to raise revenue, and then pursue additional oil entitlements in relation to the Jubilee field. Government feels that there are some attainable entitlements, and we need to work to make sure we have them back. And then, of course, harmonization of royalty rates for mining companies. Now, I spoke about structural reforms, and I'll just quickly go through the 5 top ones. The first one being public financial management reforms to ensure that there is better care for the public purse, and we have strict abidance to the law. Some of the dictates in the law are quite frightening, because me, as a purse holder for GIPC, I'm personally liable for any amount of money that is spent inordinately or outside the law. So my personal assets and my all my own finances will be attached if we as a firm spend outside the PFM. It's that serious. So we ought to be very mindful that we need to protect the government purse and the public purse. Secondly, there's going to be quite a bit of reform in the SOEs, and I did mention Cocoa Board, the energy sector. You're all aware of the energy sector levy. And you're all aware of some of the take-or-pay contracts that we signed a couple of years back, which practically were not sustainable, so we had to renegotiate and find a more conducive way for mutual benefits. Then, of course, financial sector reforms to ensure that we have a much more robust financial sector to support economic growth. And then, of course, one that keeps coming up all the time, tax policy and administration reforms and revenue reforms. And then what I said before, the social protection reforms. With the gaps that we have currently, we expect external financing of the budgets to be supported by the IMF 3 billion agreement, of which there's 1.2 billion for 2023, and then 720 million per year for 2024-2025, and then 360 million for the 2026. That will complete the full 3 billion support. We also expect some external debt restructuring to provide financing of approximately 2.5 billion, and by tomorrow there's going to be tomorrow we'll probably complete the negotiations with the other partners, the key partners that we have outside the IMF. Then we also have some World Bank support of which the DPO is $300 million, and the GFSF, and I'm sure most of you know what that is 250 million for 2023, and then 300 million per year for 2024 and 2025. The rest of the budget will be financed from project loans projected at about 13.6 billion Ghana cedis in the 2023 budget for 2023, this year alone. And I think government is on track for that. And the World Bank is also planning to disburse about $1.45 billion for project loans during the 2023 and 2026 time profile. And I'm happy to say that GIPC, we worked quite closely with the World Bank, and we believe that we should have mutual beneficiation for that. But for us, our key expectation is that we believe that Ghana is extremely attractive and still a very good place to invest. But we can get better each and every day. We can get better by eliminating some of the myths and making sure that the information gaps are closed and that there's mutuality in the way we look at the benefits. To safeguard our growth prospects, the PCPEG has also a focus on some private sector participation. Indeed, not some. I would say significant shift to private sector participation. And we are looking for partnerships in the private sector on a B2G basis through private-public partnerships, but also direct private sector participation in the economy. And that is what is going to drive some of the reforms that I've mentioned about, the very significant reforms that I've mentioned about that you'll see in the next few days, I'm sure. But also to facilitate productivity growth. Now, we are going to have a clear focus on manufacturing and exports. I mean, Ghana is resource rich. We have gold, diamonds, bauxite, iron ore, lithium, manganese, name it. But we've erstwhile been exporting it raw, in this raw form. Government's tendency right now is to ensure that we add value in situ before export to make sure that we move up the value chain from our exports. And we also, secondly, to also strengthen delivery of public-private partnerships. Because where the investor or the business partner may have limitations to the private sector, the state may step in and partner to de-risk their projects, but also to give certain comforts so that we have more opportunity created for our own people for jobs and growth. And then, of course, reforms to improve the business sector. The president did say a couple of years back when he took office that he wanted to make Ghana the best place to do business on the continent, if not one of the best, which is a daunting task because that requires significant reforms and significant turnaround in the way we've done things before. But now we are very clear that that is the way to go. There have been examples all over the world, and I think Ghana itself is very well positioned and ready. I mean, our people are ready. Ghana's population mirrors very much what I said about the African population. Some 60% of our population is under the age of 35. They are young, able people who are very entrepreneurial, and we need to create the opportunity for them to be able to contribute effectively to the economic growth. So the focus on youth entrepreneurship and youth empowerment is going to be key in improving the business environment, but also to ensure that when the investors come, they have the real partnerships that they can engage and technically sound, well-trained to be able to do that. One of the key platforms for that is the free senior high school program, which is to ensure that in the very near medium term, at least the average Ghanaian would have a minimum education of high school education, which is very, very important in transitioning from an export-based, a raw material export-based business into one of exports of finished goods and services. Then, of course, promoting entrepreneurship. And in that vein, I would like to thank many of our partners from the many foreign missions who have been very active in helping us with facilitating entrepreneurship. Indeed, it's one of the cornerstones of our future, so we are very good. And then last but not the least, facilitating and engendering a digital economy. And I'm sure many of you know many of the things that have been done already with the registration, with the land titling, where every 5 by 5 meters squared has a digital address, where all of us are biometrically registered in Ghana. And we are going to follow through with quite a number of them, from the e-visa to the paperless port to e-governance, with the government Ghana.gov platform, which will provide all government services on a digital platform. For us at GIPC, our key strategic sectors, priority investment sectors, will remain at agro-processing, because we are basically an agro nation, manufacturing, tourism, infrastructure, technology and digitalization. But we're also looking at the soft economies of education and health, and then the creative arts. And the creative arts is emerging as one of those very exciting areas in which we can actually build new investments and economies. So I think I'll end here. I have given you pretty much what their plan is and what we are going to focus focus on. I mean, the Ministry of Finance keeps echoing that we are not out of the woods yet. So there's going to be a bit of belt tightening, but there's also going to be a certain aggression into ensuring that we create opportunity for our young people to grow the economy through investments and facilitating better business environments and making it easier for both Ghanaians and foreigners who want to invest in Ghana to invest. And so the reform program is real. I'm happy to say that we are quite close to getting it right now to cabinet and then to parliament. In fact, 2 days ago I was with the president and he warned me that he's not going to entertain any lateness beyond next week. So I have to make sure that whatever document we have lands right in front of cabinet and then we'll look at it. We've had at least 22 stakeholder meetings over the past 4 years to get to where we are. And we agree that there might be some areas that, would require, endless debate because the jury is still out there globally as to the best way to do some things. But the assurance we give that it's important that we do these reforms because it's for real benefits to the economy. And when we say that we want to position Ghana as the best place to invest and to do business, we mean it, and we have to put the money where our mouths are and create the environment to let that happen. Of course, the immediate beneficiary of all these reforms will be Ghana and the Ghanaian economy and the people of Ghana. But we also would offer opportunity for significant growth and entry into the African market to all our investors who come here. And at GIPC, we'll give you all the necessary support and hand-holding to make sure that happens. We'll later on hear from our aftercare department, which is there to do a bit of hand-holding and to eliminate problems between the investors and the state investors and the market. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope that we can have a very constructive engagement for all of us, our mutual benefit. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
To proceed with the program, we would have up next to receive an address from the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps. He is the Ambassador of Lebanon to Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome with a round of applause His Excellency Maher Khe. Thank you.
What shall I say now, Mr. Grant? You said everything. Well, Excellencies, ambassadors, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished economic councillors, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am delighted to be with you today on behalf of the Diplomatic Corps to address this esteemed Catherine. Today I would like to shed light on the importance of strengthening economic partnerships and share some insights on how we can achieve this goal. Economic growth is a vast concept which is difficult to achieve all alone. In today's global village, it is necessary for countries to adapt and partner with others to realize this vision. Economic partnerships serves as the backbone of a global prosperity and stability. They transcend borders, ideologies, ideologies and cultures, bringing nations together in pursuit of shared economic growth and development. As economic counselors, it is our duty to nurture and enhance these partnerships to unlock their full potential. To strengthen economic partnerships, we must first prioritize open communication and welcome a collaborative mindset. Platform like this summit help us to forge alliances that drive innovation, increase trade flows, and boost investment between our nations. Secondly, bilateral and multilateral trade agreements. Governments can negotiate and establish trade agreements that reduce or remove barriers such as tariffs and quotas between countries. These agreements can enhance market access, promote investment, and facilitate the flow of goods and services. As economic counselors, we must advocate for the reduction of these obstacles to create a level playing field where businesses can thrive. In addition, we should focus on promoting economic diversification and resilience. Overdependence on a single sector or market can make economies exposed to shock. By diversifying our economic portfolios, exploring new sectors, and encouraging innovation, we can foster resilience and create a solid foundation for long-term economic partnerships. Investing in infrastructure development is another crucial aspect of strengthening economic partnerships. Robust transportation networks, efficient logistics, and reliable connectivity are essential for boosting trade and economic integration. As economic counselors, we should advocate for the development of infrastructure within our own countries and in partnership with others. Moreover, we must invest in education and skills development. Through education, training, and knowledge transfer, we can empower our workforce and equip them with the skills necessary to participate in the global economy. Collaboration in this area through exchange programs between educational institutions can enhance human capital. Lastly, we must not overlook the importance of sustainable development. Economic partnerships should be founded on principles of environmental responsibility and social inclusivity. By integrating sustainability into our economic activities, we can ensure that growth is not only robust, but also maintained in the long run. As economic counselors, we have a unique opportunity to promote effective initiatives and practices that benefit both our economies and our planet. In conclusion, strengthening economic partnerships requires dedication, collaboration, and a shared vision for prosperity. As economic counselors, It is our duty to foster an environment of trust, promote open dialogue, and advocate for policies that support economic integration. By accepting these principles, we can unlock the full potential of economic ties and create a better future for our nation and the world. I look forward to fruitful discussions and collective efforts in strengthening our economic relations. Thank you.
Taka, or Tico as it is known in Ghana, is a power generation company. The company is owned by Abu Dhabi National Energy in collaboration with VRA. Both of them are the shareholders. This business produces power to Ghana, 330 megawatts we produce. We generate about 15% of Ghana power on a daily basis. We supply electricity to about 3 million homes or households in Ghana. Taka operates a combined cycle plant in Ghana. We produce on gas. We also produce on what we call the light crude oil. We can produce gas also on distilled oil. Today we produce power by using gas. We produce about 342 megawatts to the grid. We produce power by using 2 gas turbines and a steam turbine. Taka, as Abu Dhabi National Energy, is in 11 countries. In Africa, we are in Morocco and also in Ghana. The plant here has been here since 2000. Taka actually acquired it in 2007, and so has been in this country over that period. In that period, as I said, we have been producing power to support the economical development and social development of the nation. As a business, we are in maturity stage. As Abu Dhabi National Energy, continue to look globally for investment in terms of what we call today, because of climate change, we are looking at environmental friendly sort of energy production. Taka employs over 100 engineers within the plant. Almost all of them come from the Western region. Today, at least we can say that we have about 2 or 3 engineers that are employed at the plant that come directly from the villages or the communities around here. We continue also to develop the skilled labor here. We are supporting over 200 children through their education year on year. This has been going on since 2003. Health-wise, we support the local hospitals, we support the local clinic. There wasn't an oxygen facility years back in 2015. We constructed an oxygen facility for the infants unit at the hospital. It is acknowledged in Ghana that we are one of the most reliable power plants as far as generation is concerned. We continuously deploy technology to improve on our performance. We will say that over the last 20 years, since the inception of this power plant, we have played a significant part in the development of the nation. We see our role as a strategic partner for the government of
leading and reputable voice of UK-Ghana trade relations in the private sector. She has spent over 20 years of her career in senior corporate management roles in the fast-moving consumer goods manufacturing industry and media management, where she has an excellent track record of providing best practice in the sector. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome on stage Madame Ajoba Chiama.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be your moderator for this morning's discussion, and I have an amazing panel of speakers who will be joining me shortly. I'll call them one by one. So with me is Mr. Edward Ashong Latte, Director of Investment Services here at the GIPC. Please join me on stage. Over there. Next is Mr. Kun Yang, Chairman, China Enterprises Chamber of Commerce. Then I have Mame Awindo Kanyiri. I hope I pronounced it well. Policy Officer from the Netherlands Embassy. And then finally, but not the least, my good friend Simon Maji from the American Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So, as Isaac said earlier on, the topic of our discussion is nurturing sustainable partnerships, collaboration between Ghanaian businesses and international investors. And as we all know, no nation can behave like an island. We need to collaborate, we need to work with other nations in order to grow. And collectively on this stage, we have so we're represented by Mr. Ashon Latte, representing Ghana. Right, and then the others are collectively the largest trading partners of Ghana. The scene has been set by Mr. Grant and also His Excellency the Ambassador to Ghana from Lebanon. So I will probably ask each of my panel members to say a little bit about what they do and the current state of bilateral trading relations between their countries and Ghana. I will start with Simon. I think you have a microphone. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Ajoba, and good morning to all of you. I'm excited to be here to represent the American Chamber of Commerce. So, as many of you may be aware, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the world's oldest trade association with over 3 million members and 122 chapters around the world, of which the American Chamber of Commerce Ghana is the local affiliate. And our work primarily is working to promote trade and investment between Ghana and the United States. As said by the speakers before us, Ghana is a great place to do business, but Ghana could be the ultimate place to do business if we improve on everyday transactions. So the U.S. and Ghana has a historical strong business relations. There are over 125 or more U.S. companies operating here. And as of the last survey, they've invested close to 20 billion in the Ghanaian economy, employing over 10,000 workers counting. Many of our workers still find Ghana to be a favorable place to do business, even though, like in all places, there are challenges and issues that we'll love to be resolved. So this is just my preliminary comment, and as we go on, we'll have some more discussions on the issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I must add that as moderator, I'll have a few questions for my panel, But I will also solicit questions from the audience. If there's anything that any of them has said that you'd require clarity, or there's a specific question that you would like to be addressed, please feel free to raise your hand, and I'm sure Isaac or somebody will bring you a mic and you can ask your question. But we'll get to that. I'll announce. I will ask Mame to speak.
So I'm Mame Awinador Kanirige. I work with the Netherlands Embassy as a policy officer for trade and economic affairs. One of the interesting things about what we're doing now is that initially the embassy was focused more on ODA, that is development aid, but now is transitioning to more of a development cooperation, and that's looking at trade and development. And under that, underpinning that is a lot of private sector development, looking at the whole concept of Ghana Beyond Aid, seeing how to tie into that, knowing that in as much as we are not at the place where we can say we don't need aid completely, how could you now have development and trade come hand in hand through what they call the combination approach? So providing enough support where you can now have some level of equal partnership. So what you will see is that there's a lot of push for investment to come into the country. And when you talk about what is the climate, I think that is obvious what the climate is like now, considering where we are at with the IMF. And when there's a climate like this, it's quite difficult actually to tell people, hey, come in and invest, because you cannot tell when the weather will be too hot, when it will be cold, even though we don't have winter here. But to be as realistic as possible, I think that the climate is what it is, but beyond the climate, how are we able to encourage investment in a very tricky space, still making sure that we help or absorb some level of risk that investors will encounter when they do come in. So with Ghana now, I know that the things are tricky, but they say that in hard times also there's room for innovation. So I think that one of the biggest things is that we as a country, if to push for more investment, working at the Netherlands Embassy, looking at Dutch investors who do want to come here, and especially because the embassy's focus is horticulture and cocoa presently, looking at these two sectors, how are we able to encourage more investment? And the key thing is we need to prepare the ground, because it's one thing to say come and invest, it's the other thing to be able to sustain the investment. And I think that our conversation today will help, direct us towards
Thank you, Mame. So, we'll probably come back to you to talk about some of the successes, because I'm sure there are lots of successes. But before we do that, we want to hear from you, Mr. Juan.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First, I would like to thank you, Mr. Yofi Grant and GIPC for such an event. It is important, I believe, the investors' voice to be heard by public, especially the foreign investor. My name is Yang Qun. I prefer Ghanaian name, Kojo Yang. Easier. I'm president of China Enterprises Chamber of Commerce in Ghana. Chinese investors play a key role in Ghana. Lots of them name you know very much, such as Sogli Power, which is the first and the largest IPP, independent power producer in Ghana, like Africa World Airline (AWA), which is the largest aviation carrier in Ghana, like Huawei Technology, which is the communication facility supplier. So I believe there will be more and more investment from China. The chamber formed in 2007 for now. There will be about 70 key investors from China. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kojo?
Yes. Thank you.
Right. So, Mr. Ashong Lati, we've heard from 3 of the largest trading partners to Ghana. Would like to hear from you now, given the context of what we've said, and your opening remarks for this.
Thank you very much, Ajuba, and good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished participants. My name is Edward Ashon Lati. the Director for Investor Services. My role at the center primarily involves investment facilitation. Upfront, we provide advisory services. We help to onboard investments by way of registering them, assisting them to obtain permits, and helping them with their renewal. We work closely with other divisions in the center to achieve the GIPC's mandate. But GIPC itself is a government agency. We've been around since the mid-60s. We've gone through several transformations from a purely regulatory institutions to a more proactive institution, as you can all attest to, in terms of GIPC putting Ghana out there on every social media handle that you do, that you can think of. The center's mandate enjoins us to cater for both Ghanaian and foreign businesses. Very often people say it's only foreign businesses, but we do cater for the local businesses as well. And so we assist with joint venture partnerships. We have a special program called the Regional Sensitization Program, where we go around the country every year. We engage with business leaders and associations to identify projects, let them know our service offerings, and through the project identification, we profile these and then publish them in our project catalog, which is available on our website 24/7, so it can be accessed by anyone. So GIPC, our job, and in terms of joint venture partnerships, I'm happy to say that over the years we've registered quite a number of them from most of the countries assembled here. So that is what I'll say by way of opening remarks. Yes, before I forget, there's one important thing that is that we do is to register technology transfer agreements. Now, the importance of registering this agreement with the center is twofold. One, for the transferor, you get assurance that on due dates, the transferee here will be able to transfer the agreed sums per the technology transfer regulations to you through the banking system. And for the local business, you can be sure that by registering the agreement, you'll not be shortchanged in the sense that nobody is going to sell a technology which is freely available on the world market. And the banks too will ensure that if you don't have a technology transfer certificate, you cannot transfer these funds. So, and our legal department is ever ready to engage businesses to take them through the regulations. So, for the economic counselors here, just tell your nationals doing business here, or companies, that the GIPC is ready to assist them to ensure that they have a very good experience, because a satisfied investor is our best ambassador. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sean Latte, and it's reassuring to hear from you every time. I know that with the scene setting, we've heard about what's going on for the economy of Ghana, why Ghana is still an amazing place to do business, and even in times of adversities, there's great opportunity. We know that. So I'd like to hear about, and I'm going to ask the same questions of Simon, Mami, and Mr. Kujo Young. Please share some of the success stories, what's worked and why they've worked, from the USA side, from the Netherlands side, and from the China side. So, Simon, you first.
All right. So, thank you, Ajuba. We are looking for what worked. Ghana and the US, they have a lot of common things between the US and Ghana. So we have a great skilled labor in Ghana. We speak English. We subscribe to the same democratic values. We have a great, a legal system that works for us. It's the common law. So there's a lot in common. And so for a US investor looking for local partnerships here, it's not difficult to find. And the US companies also come from the premise that to survive in any market, you need a great local partner, because the local partner would help you navigate all the nuances and will also help you to integrate properly into the economy. So we've not had difficulty in doing that. I also believe that what we can do a lot more as a country, or what has been more successful with those partnerships, is the preparation of our local companies and our local businesses. From the last estimates, we have about 2.1 million SMEs or MSMEs in this country. 1.7 million of them, per the last check, maybe 2020, are micro. And so the rest are better prepared to partner. And what comes with the success factors? You need a local partner that is transparent, because Americans and American businesses subscribe to a lot of transparency, because they have what they call the FCPA, which is the Foreign Corruption Practice Act, which will hold these companies responsible for whatever activity or economic activity undertaken abroad. So they expect to have local partners that are transparent in their dealings, and transparent in their transactions with external partners as well, which includes suppliers. So that is one. They also partner with companies that have respect for not just the labor laws, because those are critical, but also the general laws of the country, the rules, the regulations, and abide by them. So that has been a great pillar, and one that employs people with the right skill set and the mindset to deliver, which we find many in this country. And so it's been great successes across board. So if you look at many of our major US companies, from those in the mining to the oil and gas to manufacturing, they've been able to build all these local suppliers. They've been able to partner with local companies as the needs and regulations required, to not just build prosperity for themselves, but prosperity for the Ghanaian and for the people of this country, in whose country, in whose place these operations take place. So these are some of the factors, and this is what I can share with you. But I'll just hand over to my colleague by saying, our companies employ Ghanaians. So if you come to the face of the U.S. company, that's why I'm seated here. The face of the U.S. company is a Ghanaian face. Many Americans do not believe in coming to run the business. They believe in having good local expertise to run the business, because it's much easier for them to do business that way and to be accepted that way. And it's also good for us because technology is transferred, skills are transferred, and when you build that capacity, you can work anywhere around the world, having understood the American corporate culture or how American business is conducted. So it's been many successes around. There are so many companies around that they have an American name, but if you go there, the face you meet is a Ghanaian face, because of these partnerships and because of the desire to always transition to Ghanaians handling the business and running the business.
Thank you, Simon. Mami.
So further build on what Simon said, there are a lot of companies that are doing well, whether it's in the agriculture space. When it comes to agriculture, the Dutch are one of the top expertise, have the top expertise in the world. But what I will say, just to build more on what he said, is there are success stories. The thing about it is that now you're looking at whether you see companies like Niche Cocoa, Senpar, there's a lot of Dutch investment here in Ghana that people don't know about. And as he said, you may go there and see a Ghanaian, but wouldn't know that there's Dutch partnership involved. But I think that one of the things coming in here today, I was asking myself, to really have a real conversation and not walk away after talking and writing a nice report and being online and saying, hey, we had a session, but having a real conversation of what happens on the ground. What can I say? And I think one of the biggest things is to sustain successful partnerships. We have to look at who is asking for the partnership. And what do I mean by that? When it's actually easier when a foreign Dutch company comes in here and they can find people to partner with, and run the business. However, I think that we also have to put a lot of emphasis on how we can prepare our people to be able to, capitalize on the investment. Because a lot of times, investment is lopsided. And what I mean by lopsided is like it's tilted more towards the investor. And the investor carries more of the burden because of the notion of what investment is. Because if you look at the Singaporean model, right? Investment, FDIs was one of the key things they used to develop, but that was where they hit and they specialized on. In Ghana, I think that it will be easier to have more success stories if we can say, is the FDI model what we are seeking? Because we have the FDI, we have the issue of the aid, and then we also have to look at the fact that we want to develop our local economy. So one thing the embassy is doing now is looking at how to push even for collaboration. But how now, collaborating now, the people you want to collaborate with must also understand that investment is not there to save or change your life. You're supposed to help augment or improve your capacity. So I think that one of the key things that we should look at is developing more skills. I know we spoke, Mr. Yofikan spoke about the free education system, which is good, but now we need to look at, should it just be about high school education for skilled labor, or skilled labor that is, there's a particular context of your educational system, looking at labor that is going to solve Ghanaian problems. So when the investor comes, you already have a trajectory on which you are moving. And so at the end of the day, your educational system or the skills you are building is to further enhance that. But not just that we have high school educational, people with a high school education. What kind of education do they have? Because if I do come in and I say, okay, you have a degree, do you have the skill? So we need to really invest, and that's what Singapore did, invest in skills that investors actually come in here and look for, which will make labor cheaper, unless you only want to have labor that is working in a factory and bottling things, but labor that is innovative. So honestly, we want to talk about success stories because I have to speak from, when investors come, some of the things that they wish to see in terms of their partnership is more innovative partnership, and also partnership where Ghanaians are also partnering. Because if I am into cocoa and I come and I want to set up a factory for cocoa, and at the end of the day, maybe one person doesn't have the capacity, are they willing to partner with 5 other people so that I can partner with them? And I think that if we also look at pushing more of local partnership for external partnership, it would help the story better, so that it's not one-sided of
so I'm
receiving
that
help.
This is not just advice for the audience, but maybe something that
Yeah, pretty much so.
IPC
Yeah.
can take. Okay, so we'll get to you. I was hoping that we would focus a lot more on the successes so that we can discuss why they were successful, because we also want to learn the lessons from what has worked, You've preempted my follow-up questions about what didn't work, why didn't it work, and what we can do to make it work.
Okay,
but let's
that's
hear
okay.
from
You can just because I'm just going to say something like not that I don't want to say that they aren't success stories, but the truth of the matter is that if you look at the current economy now, right, the kind of companies that we have, how many of our companies are robust enough to
But
really push?
You didn't tell us about the company.
But I mentioned Sen Power, I mentioned Niche Cocoa, right?
Okay.
And I said there's Dutch partnership in that,
Okay.
right? And there's Friesland Campina, right? When you look at peak milk on the market, there's Dutch.
Friesland.
So there doesn't mean that there isn't. I'm talking about the fact that you were talking about having a more robust economy,
Yeah, no,
so more
agreed.
partnership. So that's why I'm mentioning that.
We can come back to the conversation, but yeah, like I said, we would like to hear about the microphone. Yeah, the successes, because we like to learn lessons from what's worked.
Thank you. Ghana is the most interesting country for Chinese investor. It's attractive for Chinese investor for reasons. I think about it. I think about that. There's someone in my mind. One is political stability. It is very important. Once you go for foreigner, especially for investment, risks is most important. So political stability is most important, especially in Africa. So that is essential for the foreign investor, for Chinese investor as well. The second is something Mr. Grant mentioned lots of time. Ghana have abandoned the natural resource. Like a mineral material, like the cocoa, gold, oil, iron ore, and bauxite. It is very attractive for Chinese investor because China have huge population, like 1.4 billion. The natural resource is not enough. So we always try and find opportunities for some investment. And the third thing in my mind is Ghana is the market potential big market potential. And especially it is, free trade Africa. Ghana is the center. So it will be better. You can invest in best in Ghana to have spread all West Africa, even other whole Africa. So that's the advantage of Ghana. That's something in my mind. However, still some challenges remain. The most important is infrastructure. So I believe there will be more and more opportunities in the infrastructure development. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Sorry, keep forgetting about the microphone.
Yeah, the foundation for the success of partnerships in the business space in Ghana is our legal and regulatory framework. We have a very robust framework. It's clear and transparent, so anyone coming to do business, we encourage you to contact the GIPC, our advisory team. We have sector specialists. And then if you have to go to the Minerals Commission, we'll make the appropriate introduction so that you don't fall by the wayside. So for me, the legal framework is very important. Secondly, if you look at our population, we have a very educated labor force, and to make sure that this is sustained, I think there's been a lot of talk over the years for collaboration between academia and industry. And at the GIPC, we've been having internship programs, and Mr. Grant, if I'm permitted, last year we hosted a number of students from Ashesi universities who spent some time with us to understand how we do business. And then at the end of the program, they also wrote a report, at least outlining their observations and what they thought could be done better to improve our service offerings. Mr. Grant always says that the youth, the future belongs to them. And right now we have young people with fantastic ideas, and it's important that we bring them together and then make sure we shepherd them in the right direction. In terms of actual businesses, GIPC, as I said, we facilitate joint venture partnerships. And before we introduce you to a prospective partner, we have to be sure of where you are coming from, who you are. And one of the things that I personally do is to make sure that you belong to one of our well-known private sector associations. It serves as a point of reference. And in terms of preparing you to meet with the potential investor, we have a checklist to make sure that we tick all the boxes. Of course, you can't get 100%, but at least it helps to a large extent to minimize the issue of quacks or people who are not ready to be put forward for business partnerships. I can see the same for our external investment promotion activities, where we invite companies to join us. It's not a free ride, or it's not a holiday trip, even if you are going to fund it. But we want people who actually have business cases to promote to the people out there. And GIPC, if I'm not talking too much, but our aftercare division is that they engage the companies if they have any challenges, through advocacy role and our liaison role with other government agencies. We are able to help resolve most of these things. I'm sure when Vic comes on stage, he'll tell you a lot more about the aftercare division. And then, just to make sure that people are doing what they registered to do, we have a monitoring team. They work closely with the private sector associations, because sitting here, we cannot, identify all the places where the businesses are located. They tell you, Vivo Place, once he gets his certificate, he moves to another place. So our monitoring team is constantly in the field to track these businesses, find out what they are doing, and more importantly, also, those who have not registered with us. Under Section 24 of the GIPC Act, for a foreign business, before you open your doors, you must register with us. On a few occasions, you find people who try to go under the radar, and our monitoring team is there to make sure that we sanitize the environment. I'm sure most of the people here have heard about the good agitations. People doing what they are not supposed to do, or doing business where they are not supposed to do. So we have all these structures in place to make sure that when it comes to partnerships, GIPC can provide guidance and advice all the way.
Thank you. I was hoping that you would address some of the
With the
what you're doing in terms of we talked about skills gap. For
yeah, the
example.
skills gap.
Are you
access-
working with the other government institutions to address that?
Okay. First of all,
Okay, I was hoping that you finished, or you want me to go first. So, Mr. Grant wants to speak to that.
Thank you very much, and I've noticed some of the concerns there. But I think we always need to measure some of those things with pragmatism, because these days I get requests from people into areas that are not really my mandate. But because we are in the investment space, everybody thinks that we have to do stuff, even educational policies. Say, but you, GIPC, you should make sure that you have this. I'm making sure that we have a broader thing, of course, that's part of it, but also making sure that we have a great investment foundation such that we can attract people here. And very often I've been told, but you have to also help small businesses grow. That is somebody else's mandate. Although what I do veers into that. But very often we hear all those things. And I agree with you that we must, and yesterday I was in almost a half a day long session with the policymakers about ensuring that we have the foundations to create a great business environment. And that includes having trained people who can then support foreign direct investment in specific areas. We are not yet there where we have all the specific skills required in almost every sector yet. But at least the foundations are there. Government is also focusing on skills training. There's been a lot, I mean, if you listen to the news, there's been a lot of emphasis on skills training over the past 2 years, and actually changing even the nature of our education such that it is more on understanding concepts and applying them than just only knowledge. So I think we are getting there. The big challenge that I see many of the foreign investors coming from different parts of the world is sometimes the inconsistency in policy, or not having a funnel for which there is just one tunnel that everybody passes. And that is a big challenge for us. Our aspirations are in future to have GIPC become a one-stop shop and become a development agency type of IPA, such that when the investor comes here, he can come through our doors and all the other permits and stuff will be facilitated in situ, such that the cost of his coming in will be lessened, the time it takes to get onboarded as a business is also lessened. But yes, indeed, our core mandate is really to market the country brand, facilitate, attract, onboard foreign direct investment into the country in partnership with local investors.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. And thank you also for clarifying the role of the GIPC. Mr. Ashon Lati.
Okay. What I also like to add is the fact that in terms of issues with other agencies, GIPC, we have a program called Interagency Dialogue where we regularly meet with investment implementing agencies, that is, institutions whose activities have a bearing on investments. So we gather regularly to discuss issues, especially the gray areas with respect to implementing these laws. And through our monitoring team, when they go to the field and they come back, they prepare a report and then they catalog the issues that are confronting investors. Some of them, they pass them on to aftercare to handle. Others too are matters of policy and other things which, through our advocacy role, Mr. Yofi Grant makes it known to the people upstairs that these issues are affecting businesses. So a lot is going on, and one thing that I would like to say is that we need to collaborate a lot more to ensure that issues are brought to the fore, and then we help to identify how these issues can be resolved. I mean, here I believe we have a lot of economic counselors here, and so GIPC, our doors are open, and this is not going to be just a one-off thing, but we'll be following up with you so that if there are any issues coming up from time to time, you draw attention to these things so that we also see how best we can handle these things. I mean, the important thing for me here is collaboration so that we can move forward.
The perfect point to end your submission so that I can ask from the other panelists what else they think that GIPC could do to support the partnerships that your businesses enter into and the potential partnerships that you're looking at brokering. So I'll ask you, I'll ask you to speak first, Mr. Young.
GIPC have a really important position to encourage the government to announce a policy to encourage the investment. Actually, for now, we have some barriers and also the financial, IMF, also tax. Not so the challenge remained. However, GIPC must make the voice to be heard by the government to encourage the investment, especially from a foreign investor. That is very important. And sometimes GIPC is the only government to stand with the investor. Sometimes.
It wasn't very clear. Your last point.
Oh, sometimes the GIPC is the only government authorities to stand with the investor. Sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, against
Yes.
everybody else.
Oh yeah, always. Because you know some challenges remained. Well, sometimes always GIPC is encouraged. So it is very important, as said before, make the voice to be heard by the public. Thank you.
Okay. Mami, and then Simon, you be next.
Yes, I think, and I understand that GIPC's mandate is limited to, you have to promote investment. So when it comes to certain government policies, it's outside your scope. I think that one of the key things then will be to expand the conversation, in moments like this where you have someone from customs, the different sectors, where we can actually have a more in-depth conversation, because investment is just like, it's not the seed, but it's probably like fertilizer. It's one of the things that you need to grow, but you need to till the ground. If the investment climate or the economy is the ground, then a lot of work must be done there. So even GIPC's work is affected by government policy. And so that's why we need to be able to have these real conversations. As I said, I won't sit here and just, be telling stories. I know, because we know what happens on the ground. Yes, but the challenges can be solved. They are not far above, reach. But one of the key things is, how do we open the conversation? So when it comes to investment bids, so we can ensure that investors don't come and carry so much of a burden, where it's like, for example, someone comes in, they want to do something with palm oil, but they cannot find people who can meet the demand that their factory has. So they want a partner. For example, someone will come in to meet what they need. So they can come and say, hey, we want to set up a factory here. We don't even want to run it. We want to partner with a Ghanaian. But now finding farmers who can even meet the supply becomes a challenge. So I think one of the key things is, GIPC I know is limited, but how do we broaden the conversation for collaboration? Everybody is in the room having the talk. It's not us and them. It's not investors and them. It's investors, it's the NGOs, the CSO, it's the farmer, it's the student. Everybody's having a conversation so that we are able to now see where the problem is, because we all have a role to play to ensure that investment in Ghana is sustainable. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mami.
All right, thank you, Ajoba. And I believe that Mr. Grant, touched slightly the main elephant in the room, which is the harmonization of the laws, because beyond GIPC is a layer of regulations that if you want to do business, you have to comply with. So GIPC is just the fine guy that comes to you and speaks to you nicely. But when the rubber hits the road, you have real challenges. And that's where decisions are made. That's where decisions are made concerning investment, whether to invest more in Ghana, or just pull out or scale down or go to another country where those regulations are more favorable. And we've seen companies complain over and over again that it's like the regulations keep coming overnight. You don't hear about it. The next day, you have to comply with this new regulation from this regulatory agency. if the investor could be involved with these processes, because sometimes the lawmaker is not aware of the real conditions that are affecting those businesses. So if they could be a lot more engaging in making the law, we know it's Ghana's sovereign right to make the laws. But if you're making it, we need to bear in mind the investment, the people who put their money here. So that's one. Two comes to the interpretation of the rules after they've been made. Okay, so GIPC will help you to speak with GRA, but is GRA really understanding of what the investor is going through and the processes, even when you lay bare your books to them? Because the mindset is revenue mobilization, but revenue mobilization must be done in a way that will help the company to survive, because the company is employing Ghanaians. So that is point number two, which must be taken. It's really affecting your investment here. How then do you form the partnerships and meet the SDG 17, which is forming partnership? So that is also very important. The third one is, how do you localize? How do you implement your localization requirements without having to compromise investment in your country? There are overnight localization laws which will take the next 2, 3, 4 decades to implement, when it can be gradual, when we can build the capacity of Ghanaians to ultimately run these businesses. Like I said, the face of the U.S. business is Ghanaians. So ultimately, they want Ghanaians to run the business, but it is their money. So you need to find the right skills, as she said, to man this investment for you. So that is very important. I mean, I won't dwell on the bigger picture of infrastructure. Ghana is still emerging and developing. So Ghana is doing its best when it comes to infrastructure. You can see we have at least a good telecommunication system. We have people can move around. So we are building on that. But there are the real issues. These are the real issues that confront the investors. And then finally, would an investor be allowed to pick a local partner of their choice or choosing based on their own laid down criteria? These are the things we need to address. If we can address them, like I said, Ghana is already a great place to do business, but Ghana will become the ultimate place to do business if we can address some of these. So thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Mr. Sean Latte, your three fellow speakers have given you a lot to chew on. So your contribution.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to assure my Excellency on the right that GIPC will be there for you all the time. Let me show you that. And secondly, in terms of the issues, as my sister said, earlier when I said that GIPC, we have a platform where we engage the implementing agencies, GRA, immigration, and the likes. We have a meeting coming up soon, so maybe to help us to sort of get this thing moving, you can send us some of the concerns, and then we'll invite the appropriate agencies. And invite.
It's not just to the Netherlands Embassy.
No, it's across everybody, yeah. So you send us the concerns, we'll catalog them and identify the agencies who should be invited, and then we'll invite you also to, you or your reps, to come and sit in some of these meetings so that you can start the conversation. At least you make new friends there. You can follow up the discussions at the end of this program.
Thank you, and I really, really like that. I think that it's the perfect point to probably bring this conversation to a close, because we're discussing sustainable partnerships, and you want to be able to ensure the long-term viability of these bilateral partnerships. And so, giving us this chance to be able to engage, and I know that I'm wearing the moderator hat here, but everything that my colleagues from China, from Netherlands, and the USA have said apply also to UK investors in this market. So I'm using the opportunity also to add my voice to it and say that once you've opened that line of communication, long may it continue, and let's have those regular engagements to ensure that we are feeding into your work and you are truly advocating for a wider representation of those bilateral businesses that operate in Ghana. Unfortunately, I've been advised that on the agenda there's a question and answer session, and therefore we must save the questions from the audience for that session. So thank you very much for your kind attention. Just hold on to your questions and you'll be allowed to voice them shortly after the next presentation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Let's give it up again for our wonderful panelists and moderator. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's give it up for them as they get off the stage. Thank you.
KEDA is into manufacturing of ceramic tiles and other ceramic products, such as sanitary wells. KEDA was registered in the year of 2015, and KEDA commissioned its first phase in the year of 2017. This year in September, KEDA commissioned its third phase, and probably by next year in June, KEDA is going to commission its fourth phase. KEDA is still expanding, and KEDA is going to make the Ghana the industrial hub for the whole West Africa, probably the Africa as a continent. KEDA, since its establishment in the Lower Inchaban Shama district, has created more than 2,000 jobs. As for the indirect employment, there are about 5,000. Majority of the workers are from the local communities. And also KEDA have the people from the northern region and the mine area where they supply KEDA the raw materials. Ghana used to import 100% of the ceramic tiles from other countries, and now the importation has been reduced to about 10 to 15%. So that means more than 85% of ceramic tiles are manufactured locally. And also, KEDA has contributed a lot of taxes, including VAT, PAYE, and withholding taxes, together with other taxes. The mother company of KEDA, which is in China, is the manufacturer of ceramic tiles production line. It ranks number 2 in the world in terms of its business. The production line and equipment we used is normally 20 to 30% higher than the other factories, and it also environment friendly. For the Triforce ceramic tiles, and KEDA is very strict on the quality control. There is a team comprised of more than 200 people to control every process. Ghana is a very good country for the investors. The political environment is very stable, and then the people, the Ghanaians, are very kindly. And of course, the government has been very supportive in terms of all the procedures, and maybe together with the policy initiatives. So KEDA has received a lot of support from the 1D1F board, which formed the decision for KEDA to invest here in Ghana and keep expanding. Under 1D1F, all the equipment and facilities for the production are exempt from the VAT, together with other taxes. Yeah. And secondly, the raw materials is also exempt from the VAT and NHIL duties. We received a lot of supports in the initial stage when we start our investment in the year of 2015 and 16, and then the GIPC, actually the government gave us the exemptions on the their equipment and capital items. Canada is exporting more than 70% of its products to the sub-region. I here encourage all the investors to choose Ghana as an investment place. Invest in Ghana, grow in Ghana, and grow with Ghana.
Presentation is will highlight successful aftercare interventions and the support provided by GIPC. And to lead us in this light is probably one of Ghana's foremost investor aftercare practitioners, the head of GIPC's aftercare program, Ms. Victoria Akosi-Akoba. A round of applause.
Good morning. Your Excellencies gathered here, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and I don't know whether I'll be able to see my slides like this.
Thank you very much once again, Victoria. That's a very good report of the work you are doing. So we are at the pinnacle moment of the program. We've now reached the Q&A session. The Q&A session is not just for questions, but it's also for contributions that you have observed during the program. We are going to do 3 rounds, for which we would come to a speaker if a question has been assigned to a speaker. It could be a speaker who gave a speech, or any of the panel members or moderators, or even the head of the aftercare division. And so my colleagues Vincent and Sylvia will be passing around the microphones. If you have a question or contribution, you can simply raise your hand and we'll get to you. Thank you. Yes.
Good morning, Yofi. Simon, thank you for the contribution. I think we go back 15 years. And then the lady was actually mirroring my views on... my name is the Honorable Nasiba Kiel. I'm the Honorary Consul for Chile and also a manufacturer in Ghana. I'd like to commend the lady for all the troubleshooting that she was able to do, but the idea, or I have an idea, that if the GIPC is going to present this beautiful lady for me to marry, and then later I have to deal with the Bussian and then the Asso. Yeah, I mean, I'm 4th generation. My grandmother is fancy. So the issues, I think, don't lie strictly on the GIPC presenting a case for investment in Ghana, but having to deal with issues of Ghana immigration. The fact that you are light-skinned, they come in and they think your Ghana card was obtained fictitiously. And I had an instance where my daughter, even though she was born in Argentina, I'm 4th generation, made sure she got Ghanaian citizenship through the right model. She was harassed, threatened to be arrested, and we don't live in a police state. So if you don't carry your passport with you, it doesn't mean that you cannot present your passport. So it takes down a bit of common sense and that kind of thing. So that's one issue. Another issue is when you get audited by the GRA like 5 times a year. Post-audit, pre-audit, pre-pre-audit, then pre-post-audit. And there's a very famous expression where there was Kojo in the army and they asked Kojo, so if they come at you shooting in the front, what do you do? And you'd say, okay, I'll shoot back. So if they say if they come with you in the front and the back, so I'll shoot in the front and I'll shoot at the back. And then the guy says, okay, how about if they attack you from front and back and then from the air? And the guy says, am I the only one in the army? So I think the GIPC needs to actually streamline what... I'm a local investor, so I don't know if this forum is probably the right for small and medium, but I think that if you generate a great environment in the country, serial investors, be it myself or my colleagues here, and I'm sure I speak for a lot of people here, you invest into the economy. And by investing in the economy, you create jobs and you create an atmosphere. I mean, you mentioned gold, cocoa, oil, but you know, we can't touch them. These are strictly, laws have been set up in the 60s during independence where these are strictly parastatal commodities. Where we can invest is in the private sector by creating, and we work in the wood industry by taking beautiful wood and converting into beautiful furniture. And you have to deal with all the strategic problems, especially by buying raw materials with at 63% the cost. So if it's $1 and you're importing, it costs you 63% more. And when you buy locally to manufacture as well, and I can speak for Fair Afrique as well because we try to do something together, and the problem is getting the product, and paying the local taxes makes it so expensive that for them, they prefer to export. So this is my little contribution to this, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Any other person you can raise
Thank
your
you,
hand?
Nasif. Very good to see you and hear from you. Indeed, you're absolutely right. What we have planned for in a couple of weeks, I'm not sure which date, is to have another stakeholders meeting with the agencies that are important, particularly GRA, because your complaint is not common. I mean, I've heard it too many times. And we're even trying to get the Minister of Finance to come here this morning, but he's still in the middle of negotiations, so he couldn't make it. I'm meeting him in the afternoon. We will have that meeting, and we will invite the economic counselors and the missions to come. You know, because I think that the higher we go, the more attention they pay to it. And even as a GIPC, we sometimes have to fight with these agencies because they don't see it from our view, and we don't see it from their view. I mean, GRA will tell you, look, we have to collect our monies. We have a target to meet, so we'll do whatever it is. And of course, as for tax, I mean, as they say, I mean, there are two things that are constant in life, God and taxes. But we hate one of them seriously, and that's taxes. I mean, if nobody had to pay tax, I'm not sure anybody would. So they are aggressive about it. But we will have that meeting, and I think at that meeting, they'll hear from the investors, not from us. Because sometimes they think that we are stepping beyond our limits to do that. So we will do that, and I'm sure it will resolve some of these problems. But they are important enough because it's a mutual relationship, and we need to keep it mutual.
Thank you. Is there any other question? Next question.
Good morning. My name is Nico van Staalduinen. I'm the Honorary Consul for Bulgaria to Ghana. Good morning, Your Excellencies, gentlemen, Jeffrey Grant, and all employees of the GIPC. And because we're in the Ghana area, don't forget Nime Name, which I haven't heard before. I have some questions and some remarks. In the current GIPC law, investors are not only looking at stability, profitability, but they're also looking at the exit strategy in case it's necessary. In the current GIPC law, an investor in 2005 who invested $1 million in Ghana can recuperate now roughly $85,000 because the accountancy in Ghana is taking place in cedis. The cedi has appreciated enormously, so that's a big extra risk which investors are weighing before investing. And the reason I'm talking about this is that because in the future there are some things happening in the investment world, and especially in Ghana. Some countries might be forced, and some companies in some countries might be forced to leave Ghana. European, American, and other developed countries, those companies have to comply to their laws, not to Ghanaian laws. Now, what is happening is that with the ecological problems that are going on around the world, we will reach a time that European and American companies are not allowed to invest anymore in problems of the ecology. That means in deforestation, in oil, in pollution, anything else. And at this moment there are guidelines, but it will reach a point that banks are not allowed to invest in those companies who invest in Ghana. So that can be an important point where companies have to leave Ghana. There's something else going on. At this moment in Parliament, we are talking about the LGBTQ laws. The same companies in Europe, in the US, and the rest of the developed world have to comply to their laws, not to Ghana's law. That can also result in companies having to leave the country. Is GIPC adapting on those recent developments? Because the new GIPC Act has been for so many years prepared, and I know there are constantly adjustments, so I can imagine that the last few years, the problems of 6 years ago have been addressed, but not the problems of the recent 2-3 years. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Nico, and good to see you as always. I think you asked some very heavy questions that do not just even affect us, but affect companies globally. And I was in Switzerland about 3 weeks ago at a conference that discussed these issues. And you are right. The difficulty with these issues is they are very dynamic. So even if we change our law today, who knows what will happen in 2 years from today that will change the landscape totally. And then we have to readapt. I think the important thing is engagement, to have a clarity on what it means to other places. Because, I mean, I'll tell you something. When I take the African continent, I did say earlier on, and I'm telling you now, you can quote me anywhere, the future of the world will depend on how Africa is treated. Without a doubt. Why? Because Africa today houses not less than 40% of the world's remaining mineral resources, especially those required for energy transition. Lithium, for one, which has become the key mineral metal that the world will need. Now, today, most of the lithium that is extracted in the world comes from the DRC, about 90%, with a little bit elsewhere. In the next 5 years, Ghana has found lithium, Mali's found lithium in deposits 10 times the size of Ghana, Togo is going to get lithium, Benin is going to have lithium, Nigeria is going to have lithium, Cote d'Ivoire is going to have lithium. The lithium deposits are all around this zone. Their pricing will come down. But the world requires it. So you have to have a compromise. And culture is also dynamic. You know, culture is very dynamic. I mean, we talk about LGBT today in the liberal world. The same way Ghanaians will also ask, so why then do other cultures not accept polygamy? Because in our culture it's accepted. You know, so it's a question of how do we negotiate the various cultural nuances to the benefit, for the mutual benefit of all of us. As you said, there is a problem again with even environmental correctness, political environmental correctness, as I call it. As we speak, from COP26 going to COP27, almost every country has agreed that we need to get to net zero carbon emissions in the very near future. But of course, mining is one of the biggest contributors of emissions. Now, Africa is resource rich. And the indication is that, well, Africa has to keep its resources trapped underground to resolve a problem that it contributed very little to, although we are minerals rich. Africa's contribution to global emissions is less than 4%. But yet we have to be held to the same regimes that others, you know, who developed on hydrocarbons have held. So it's a difficult conversation of balancing and making sure there's mutuality in the understanding and the benefits. It's not a one solution that everybody must abide by when the solution is not where the problem is. It's the same issue with agriculture. Africa holds 60% of the world's remaining arable land. But yet when they speak about sustainable agriculture and food security in the world today, Africa is just a footnote. The problem won't be solved, obviously, if you don't look at the African continent, because that is where the fertile remaining arable land is. You know, so I think that's why I keep saying that it calls for new conversations. I think it calls for a boldness from Africans to sell a new narrative, that it's one of negotiation and then one of partnerships. So we, as I go out, I look for partners who would come and do responsible mining, which will comply with global standards of cleanliness and technology. Luckily, there's a lot of technology being developed today that makes that can bring about sustainable mining and clean mining. And that is what we look forward to, such that we can still do what we do, use the resources to develop, and still be a partner to the world. But you are right, it's a challenging environment. Things are very dynamic and fluid, and things change all the time. I think the best solution comes from when it's mutually acceptable, not when it's imposed from one side to the other side, because it doesn't work.
Yes. Any other question and contribution? Yes, please, can you? So Charlene, then Vincent, there's someone here. Sorry.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jean-Noël Blanc. I'm the economic counselor to the French embassy, as you can recognize my accent, maybe. So thank you, Mr. Grant, and the GIPC team for this event, which is very, very important. Thank you for the presentation as well, which was very realistic about the current economic and financial Ghanaian situation. And I completely share your views about the private sector. As Americans used to say, it takes two to tango. And the private sector is probably one of the most important dancers in the couple. And I have some remarks on one question. When I look back 10 years ago, the FDI made up 10% of GDP. Last year, it fell down to 2%. And the IMF expectation is to reach 3.5% by 2026. So it's a huge and very tricky challenge for Ghana to reattract FDI as soon as possible. FDI, when I have some discussion with a French entrepreneur or companies established in Ghana, they have put on hold or redirected the FDI to other countries. And the question is, and this is a very important question for the GIPC because you are responsible for promoting the investment in Ghana, how Ghana can catch new FDI despite the current economic situation and the fact that Ghana won't be able to reaccess to the financial market before the end of the IMF program. So I share the Simon views. Thank you, Simon, for your presentation. I think that the most important point for an entrepreneur is the stability of fiscal policy, the stability of laws and regulation for entrepreneurs, and maybe a single window for investors to figure out any sort of problem before investing. You know that after the GIPC, the investor have to go through the different commissions, the different agencies, and it takes a long time before or between the first step and the last stone. So thank you again for your intervention. I'm sure that you are pushed a lot to be at the single window for investors. And how do you see your responsibility to attract new FDI in the coming 3 years before the end of the IMF program? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very important question that you ask, and it's one that every day we are constantly evaluating at the policy stage. And yes, you're right, it becomes more and more challenging to attract new investment. And although I would say that we've had our GDP grow faster than our FDI, the thing is there room for new FDI? What I can tell you from where I sit is, interestingly, the appetite and the interest has increased over the past 2 years. I mean, I barely have time to breathe. I'm constantly having to move, constantly have to meet investors, and we are getting new investors coming into the market who we don't call our traditional investors. The drop in FDI significantly comes because there have been new regulations in the oil and gas sector, in the mining sector. And if you would remember or recognize, a lot of FDI that came in the last 10, 20 years was resource seeking. But we've moved away from that. And so we are seeing new investors come to the market, smaller investors, but more in number, doing things like manufacturing, in the hospitality space, in the agri space. It's no more than 300 million, 500 million investors. It's those who are coming with 10, 20, 15 million. But they are increasing in number. And for me, that is instructive of where we want to go as a country, because our economy is 85% SME, SMI. And when you bring in the very big investors, there is a feeling that you are crowding out Ghanaians from it, which is not true, though. It's not. Because if somebody's come to invest in, let's say, nuclear energy, you are unlikely to find big enough Ghanaian investors to do that, or oil and gas. They can invest in services, but they can't invest in the actual infrastructure for oil and gas because it's huge capital and it's expensive. But we are seeing it. Just a few days back, we've seen a Ghanaian put together a consortium to do a refinery, about $2 billion in Ghana. They've just registered, they are going ahead to do it. We are seeing these pockets. We've seen some big investors from the UAE come in. They want to do data centers up to about $1.2 billion. So that is happening. And we just recently got the World Investment Report. And the trend in Africa is actually trending downwards. Africa was the one that suffered the most from the decline in FDI. Some other developing countries, in fact, the Caribbeans and a couple of countries from Latin America got the bulk of investments. Even the US investments are decreasing. Even China's share of FDI is decreasing. So the world is in a transition space of many different dimensions. I think our best opportunity comes from green investments, where because we naturally are doing some things right, like reforestation, like trying to combat galamsey, like introducing sustainable energy in the public. For example, government has a policy that all state buildings in the very near future should get off the grid and get solar. You know, those things are what is going to bring new investments. We are seeing investors come in who actually want to build solar panel plants in Ghana, and I think that is attractive. As to whether there is a ceiling for those who are here already, I don't think so. I mean, we've had companies that have been in Ghana for 100 years. When I first said it, I was a bit surprised that GE has been in Ghana for over 100 years. Unilever has been here, CFAO and all its other things. There are French companies that have been here for over 50 years. And I'm not sure they are ready to pack and go because there's new opportunity. They see the growth in the market. Bear in mind, prior to COVID, Ghana's GDP was growing at an average of 7%. One of the fastest, not in Africa, but in the world. And the investor looks at GDP growth. So once we are able to get over this hump that we have right now, which is challenging but definitely doable, I do not see that the opportunity will shrink. On the other hand, the AFCFTA rather opens the door for new opportunities of manufacturing on the continent for the continent. I mean, I had the benefit of speaking to a couple of, actually some of them were French and some of them were Dutch, and they were asking me, what's the real opportunity to do? I says, look, although we are signatory to the European Partnership Agreement, if I were a manufacturer in Europe, I'll probably come and put my plant in Ghana, because if I put my plant in Ghana, I have access to a market of 1.4 billion people. If I keep it in Europe, it's probably going to be more expensive for me to manufacture because of the direction of manufacturing, and I will not have a market of 1.4 billion people. So there are always new opportunities that we need to exploit, and this is a situation which I'll tell you that maybe you should carry it over to your people that we are waiting for them.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. So we are taking 3 final remarks. Okay, 4, then it ends.
Okay.
Yeah, so
all right. Thank you.
So no, let me just signal. So Simon, then we'll take you. Then Charlene raised his hand before.
All right.
Then a final one. So that's 4. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Grant. But this is just an addition. If it's an addition, if we are looking for new areas, would government of Ghana rather not consider the new initiative, which is the digital FDI? We have the people, we have the skill set. I mean, I think Ghana should be a leader on the continent pursuing this new area, which is digital FDI. Let's look at the supply, let's look at the demand, and then the interconnection, and we can build up from there. So just my suggestion as a Ghanaian and not US chamber for now. Okay.
Indeed, you are right. And I just mentioned that there are 3 companies coming to build data centers in Ghana. That's key. Now, the reason why they want to build the data centers in Ghana is because they've identified Ghana above South Africa, Kenya, Morocco, and Egypt as the fastest place to upscale in the technology space. And so that's why they want to put the data centers in Ghana. So technology is not lost on us at all. In fact, government's policy of digitalizing almost all its services are key at this point. And therefore we would look, and I've been talking to some very important players in the technology space, including SpaceX from Elon Musk. I have my own question or maybe comment, and it goes to many of the economic counselors and the excellencies who are here. You know, the GIPC does a lot of outward missions, and we we do a lot of engagement inside and outside. There are occasions when GIPC, supported by note verbals from the foreign ministry, have some of our visas rejected. And when you try to find out, you can never get the reason why. They just shut the door in front of you. Yet we always get complaints that, oh, it's so difficult to get a Ghanaian visa, there are delays, there are this, there are that. But in our own country, they shut us out. And I'm saying that in the spirit of cooperation, understanding, and mutuality of engagement, it's one area we need to seriously look at. Because sometimes it's a major disincentive of trying to get our private sector people to join us on our missions. Unfortunately, my very good friend, the dean, is left, but it's one that I would have put squarely on his face that at least, just as much as we want to have foreign direct investors come into Ghana, we also believe that the way in which we can facilitate trade is by getting some of our private sector people going out there. The genuine businessmen we support are not interested in going to live anywhere else. They are interested in making money here because they see there's a bigger opportunity here. So we are appealing to you that this is something that in your own folds, as you have conversations, you should bring it up. We will not support anyone who is not genuine because we do our due diligence before we submit the list. Even staff from GIPC are sometimes denied visas, and it makes it difficult for us. So please, my humble appeal to you is please consider these situations and have a new attitude to it. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Excellencies. My name is Clement from Enterprise Singapore, the Singapore government agency based in Ghana and looking at the West and Central Africa region. My question has to be around sustainability because this is a strong narrative and we have Ghana and Singapore looking to build stronger relationships in this area. So I want to find out from GIPC if there's any framework or guidelines that you are building around this narrative or this area of investment. The second one is on a lighter note, and actually to answer your question, Mr. Grant, is that if others would not give GIPC visa and the likes for trade missions, Singapore is visa-free for Ghanaians, so we will take more of them. Thank you.
All right, we'll take Charlene's question. Sylvia. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Charling Wiada from the Ghana Netherlands Business Council. Good morning, Mr. Jovi. By the way, I totally agree with your last remark about the visa. It's a bit also a problem for us, for our members, etc. So I support you on that fully. Mr. Ashong Lati said GIPC will be there for you, and it's about the GIPC's mandate. And I want to repeat this. I've put it forward on other occasions earlier. We are supportive of the GIPC, of their mission. I'm also from the Netherlands Business Council, so we support Dutch investors. It's not the case that to attract them to come here, but the problems start when they are here. And then basically I have companies within my membership who have been in logistics and transport, and suddenly they get letters of organizations like the Minerals Commission, Energy Commission, the NCA. These are all seems to be overruling the GIPC. Suddenly they're not allowed to deliver, support, or how do you call it, supply the mining industry, although they are in transport, in logistics, or in warehousing. And they've been here for maybe 30 years plus. They came in also through the GIPC, and I looked it up, because then the Minerals Commission is saying you have to be, your ownership have to be 100% Ghanaian, and your management should be 100% Ghanaian, and if not, then you have to disinvest. Well, if you look up what is an indigenous Ghanaian company, 51% ownership is Ghanaian, and 80% management should be Ghanaian. But they go beyond that. And my question is, you've invested here, You went through the GIPC, you've done business, you've done nothing wrong, and suddenly you get a letter like you're not, you don't have, your ownership is not correct. Or so how do you attract a foreign investor then? So I'm at loss. We're not in Zimbabwe, not?
The final one, then Mr. Grant. Response.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Michael from the Brazilian Embassy. And my first question got to do with information with respect to opportunities. If GIPC will put very important information, how the investors can get these opportunities for them to not like infrastructure is just there, but we need some specifics so that we can inform our people. Second, to do with the visa. I quite remember we organized a trip for people to go to Brazil, but they had an issue at the airport. And it's respect to some few airlines not allowing people with the Brazilian visas. So I would like you also to look into the airlines, how they help helping business people to also go and do genuine business. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We have another question that Mr. Grant will. So how is the GIPC, this from our online audience, how is the GIPC helping small business link up with these investors? Thank you.
I'll answer the last one first. We've just put up a new website which has comprehensive data there, and we will keep populating it with opportunities that come in mind. But we have put the sectors, the priority sectors, and some of the opportunities that are there. We will also, on our website, you see we have a linkage to the UNDP website because we work with the UNDP on what we call the SDG SME roadmap, which highlights specific areas in the sustainable space for investors. And very key, they actually show live transactions that you can invest in that erstwhile were seen to be informal, etc., etc. So I think that using our portals, you get access to the information. We were in Brazil 2 months ago, and we realized the distance between the Latin American continent and Ghana. The opportunities are immense, but the distances are long. It took me 29 hours to get to Sao Paulo. And 29 hours was more than a day, but we were there for just 3 days. By the time I was leaving, I was so exhausted. So one of the biggest opportunities we have right now is a direct line, a flight from the Latin American continent to Africa. So maybe you should look at it. On Charlie's point, I definitely do agree with you. We at GIPs have had problems with some of the divergent policies, and some of them which were conceived even before we were consulted. But we are actually working with the Ministry of Finance to consolidate all these. And this has led to GIPC now doing it differently. We are just going to have a GIPC law, but we are also going to have a new investment code. A new investment code that would rationalize all that and put everybody under one umbrella, such that we don't have the inconsistencies between agencies, ministries, and departments, but the country will have its own ambit investment law that will guide investors who come in. And I believe it will resolve many of these inconsistencies and things that happen on the blind side of agencies. So I hope that gives you a bit of comfort. Tell your investors there what we are doing right now. We're actually going to the investors and actually negotiating with them for a compact. That, okay, you want to invest in this, first of all, okay, what's in it for us? If that's what's in it for us, what can we give you to make it happen? Such that it's a mutual decision of an investor coming in, especially with the large sizes. But I dare say that we will have a more aggressive GIPC. We'll have a GIPC that responds significantly much more to the nation's needs. And the investor is without doubt a key partner as we go forward, especially due to our inability to ratchet up our revenue collection, and due to the debt problems, getting to debt sustainability is going to take a while. So investment is there. The opportunities are there. Now our job is to create a conducive, ambient, and mutually beneficial environment for both the investor and the nation and the economy, such that we have a stronger partnership our focus going forward is to leverage on the SDGs, particularly SDG 1 and SDG 17. SDG 1 is eradication of poverty, so we are looking at projects that will accelerate poverty reduction. And then SDG 17 is partnerships for linkages and trade. So we are also going to pay a lot more attention to investments for trade, because trade essentially is what builds economies. And in there, we would look at what would be the optimal and requisite policy framework that will facilitate these things to happen. So we hear your words, we hear your complaints, and we'll work assiduously at it. I must say that getting to this point in the reforms, the investment reforms, has been a process. Like I said, over the past 2-3 years, we've had a minimum of 22 stakeholder meetings where we've discussed many of these issues that we are talking about here. And so we have considered them in the reforms. But bear in mind, the new reforms and essentially what will come out as an investment law goes just beyond us. We are trying to pull all the agencies to come under it. And within that too, we are trying to engage private sector as a partner for it. The way we see the future, the engagement of B2B investment will even be more significant than B2G or G2G. The country is in a position where we will support private sector to do a lot of these investments, because that is where we think that there's a bigger pool of capital, but that is where we think that we'll be more, should I say, open to have certain types of investors which before did not come to the market.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grant, and thank you very much, everybody. The program has been quite short, hasn't it? Anyway, yeah. Thank you to everybody who has stayed through it. So we are wrapping up. We'll be taking the vote of thanks from Madame Efua Techi Mills. Let's give it up for her as she comes up. And after that, before the networking session, we will try our best to fit here and then take a group photo. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you all so much for your time and presence. On behalf of the board of GIPC, the CEO, the management of GIPC, we'd like to say a big thank you. You've made our program successful. We hope that it's been useful to you also. And as Mr. Sean shared, we will be getting back to you in time so that we can get your feedback, we can get more information from you, and see how we can be more useful to your cause, also for mutual benefit. There are a number of events listed on the screen, or to be listed on the screen. And these are engagements that the center will be hosting. Breakfast meeting, and this will be focused on local content laws and policies that are currently being implemented, and we're working with our fellow stakeholders on them. We need to create awareness. Also, we have the Ghana Investment and Trade Week, and then the Ghana Club 100 Awards. The Investment and Trade Week will be a prelude to the Ghana Club 100 Awards, all happening in September and October. And you would hear a lot more about these events. Then our year will round off with the Taste of Ghana event, which will be themed the African Dream, and also along the lines of promoting the intra-Africa trade agenda that is being championed by the AFCFTA. The interagency dialogue is not written. All these events will be shared with you periodically as they come about. Anyone, if you'd like to participate, kindly let us know when you get your invitation, and we'll do the needful for all of you. So once again, thank you so much. We are very grateful that you made time to be with us today. Have a good afternoon.
We are indeed the center of the world and the land of the three O's: opportunities, optimism, and openness for business and investment in a friendly and safe environment. We are a preferred investment destination in Africa. To find out more about what Ghana has to offer, visit www.gipc.gov.gh. Center of the world and home to the headquarters of the AFCFTA. Abundant resources and limitless opportunities for business and investment. A great story of growth and attractive returns in a fast transforming country. Be part of this great opportunity and optimism. Invest in Ghana. Make it happen with the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, GIPC. Connect, let's talk, and guide you through numerous incentive packages for investment. We are open and ready for partnerships to grow in Ghana and grow with Ghana. Locate us at Vivo Place Cantonment Accra or call us 0302-665-12529. Online at www.gipc.gov.gh and on all social media platforms at GIPC Ghana. Drop us a mail, info@gipc.gov.gh. GIPC, your first port of call for investing in Ghana.